Hello, my name is Mary, and today for Black History Month, I'll be talking about Carter Godwin Woodson. Carter Godwin Woodson was an American historian, author, journalist, and the founder of the Association for Study of African American Life and History. He was one of the first scholars to study the history of the African diaspora, including African American history. A founder of the Journal of Negro History in 1916, Woodson has been called the father of Black history. In February 1926, he launched the celebration of Negro History Week, the precursor of Black History Month. Born in Virginia, the son of former slaves, Woodson had to put off schooling while he worked in the coal mines of West Virginia. He graduated from Berea College and became a teacher and school administrator. He gained graduate degrees at the University of Chicago, and in 1912 was the second African American after W.E.B. Du Bois to obtain a PhD degree from Harvard University. Most of Woodson's academic career was spent at Howard University, a historically Black university in Washington, D.C., where he eventually served as the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Convinced that the role of his own people in African American history and in the history of other cultures was being ignored or misrepresented among scholars, Woodson realized the need for research into neglected past of African Americans. Along with William D. Hartgrove, George Cleveland Hall, Alexander L. Jackson, and James E. Stamps, he founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History on September 9, 1915 in Chicago. This was the year Woodson published The Education of the Negro prior to 1861. His other books followed A Century Negro Migration in 1918 and The History of Negro Church in 1927. His work, The Negro in Our History, has been reprinted in numerous editions and was revised by Charles H. Woodson believed that education and increasing social professional contacts among Blacks and whites could reduce racism, and he promoted the organized study of African American history partly for that purpose. He served as academic dean of the West Virginia College Institute, now West Virginia State University, from 1920 to 1922. By 1922, Woodson's experience of academic politics had left him so disheartened with university life that he vowed never to work in academia again. He studied many aspects of African history. For instance, in 1924, he published the first survey of free Black slave owners in the United States in 1830. Woodson devoted the rest of his life to historical research. He worked to preserve the history of African Americans and accumulated a collection of 1,000 artifacts and publications. He noted that African American contributions were overlooked, ignored, and even suppressed by the writers of history textbooks and the teachers who used them. Race prejudice, he concluded, is merely the logical result of tradition, the inevitable outcome of thorough instruction to the effect that the Negro has never contributed to anything to the progress of mankind. The summer of 1919 was the Red Summer, a time of intense racial violence that saw 1,000 people, most whom were Black, killed between May and September 1919. In the face of widespread disillusionment felt in Black America caused by the Red Summer, Carter worked hard to improve the understanding of Black history. Later writing, "I have made every sacrifice for this movement. I have spent all my time doing one thing, trying to do it efficiently." The 1920s were a time of raising Black self-consciousness, expressed in the movements such as the Harlem Renaissance and the Universal Negro Improvement Association, led by an extremely charismatic Jamaican immigrant, Marcus Garvey. In this atmosphere, Woodson was considered by other Black Americans to be one of their most important community leaders who discovered their lost history. Woodson's project for the new Negro history had a dual purpose of giving Black Americans a history to be proud of and to ensure that the overlooked role of Blacks in American history was acknowledged by white historians. Woodson, who wrote that he wanted a history that would ensure the world see the Negro as a participant rather than a lay figure in history. In 1926, Woodson pioneered the celebration of National Negro History Week, designed for the second week of February, to mark birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. The Black United Students and Black Educators of Kent State University expanded this idea to include the entire month. Beginning in 1976, every US president has designated February as Black History Month. Woodson died suddenly from a heart attack in the office within his home in Shaw, Washington, D.C. neighborhood on April 3rd, 1950, at the age of 74. He was buried at Lincoln Memorial Cemetery, Suitland, Maryland. The time that schools have set aside each year to focus on African American history is Woodson's most visible legacy.